Good morning, leaders. Good morning, winners. I am sure everybody had a great night last night, had a lot of fun, and can feel some energy a little different within you. I mean, these events are very special and very unique. If you have a pen and paper, take it out. It's a good time to take some notes. I'm going to give you some really powerful stuff about leadership this morning. And I know that's what you want. You know, I see this all the time. I was with a group of lawyers and government people recently, and they saw how in a short period of time, I had no income, and in a short period of time, all of a sudden, it just skyrocketed up. We were looking at and talking about the global information network statistics, how the graph went straight, and then all of a sudden it went like this. And in a short period of time, massive increases in statistics, all the positive statistics, whether it's profit, whether it's sales, whether it's income, whether it's deposits, whether it's members, whether it's products sold, all these numbers, production starts going up dramatically. Things are created, things happen, dreams and goals are attained. Dreams are manifest into reality. Goals are achieved in a short period of time. You have an idea, and all of a sudden, 6 months later, it's actually visible. You know, I had an idea for the Nuggets of Gold book, and then in just instant, it's like boom. And I remember I was talking to Blaine, and he says, "Wait a minute, you were just talking about this." I said, "Yeah," and he goes, "Well, I guess you have been keeping busy." And we both chuckled, and he said, "You know, you have the ability to just come up with an idea, and all of a sudden, before you blink, anybody blinks an eye, it's actually manifest." And that's relatively true. Some people are a little slower than others. Some people are really slow. Some people manifest things very quickly. Some people don't manifest things at all. And some people manifest things very slowly and not to a big degree. There's a whole bunch of ways people manifest things. So the question is leadership energy, is that significant in terms of manifesting your goals, dreams, and desires in your life? Another question would be, if a person has leadership energy activated within them, how do they manifest their goals? How do they make their dreams become a reality? There are a series of steps. Now, I know these steps because these are steps that generally were not taught, but were observed. In other words, certain things just automatically happen when leadership energy is activated. And in our groups, you know, in the brotherhood and different groups and so forth, this was just a normal way of doing things. Nobody had to teach you. It was just a normal way of doing it. It's like no one really has to teach you how to, you know, chew your food. You know, you might need to be taught how to hold your knife and fork, or hold chopsticks if you're in the East, or use your hands. You know, I was with my friend Saima, Her Holiness Saima. I was at her house, and we ordered some Indian food. You know, she's Indian, and we were sitting on the floor, as is traditional in India. So she put out a big, beautiful, you know, like blanket to protect the carpet. And then we got some placemats, and we put the food up on the counter, and we put the food in our plate, and we walked and sat down, and I had my fork and spoon, and she had her hands. And I watched in amazement at how delicately and gracefully she could take bread, which is why in India, if you don't have bread with your meal, they look like you're crazy, because you need the bread to scoop up the food. And how beautiful and gracefully she could eat the food without, you know, looking like, you know, licking all your fingers and things. And I'm eating with my fork and knife, and we're chatting, and it's like completely second nature to her, because this is the culture. and she ate beautiful and gracefully, and everything was clean. And I was just absolutely amazed. And I said, you really have to teach me this skill, because that was quite something. But people in India don't need to be taught that skill. It's something that's just within them, and they see it from the beginning of their life, and they just do it. Same thing with leadership energy, or leaders manifesting goals, dreams, and desires. If you're around this is what happens. So Blaine and I were talking about what is needed for you, Jinn members, those who are there in Puerto Rico and around the world watching. What's needed to help you manifest your dreams? And we talk about this all the time, that remember, Global Information Network is taking people in who haven't been in the Privilege to Lead class, and so they don't have this data. And sometimes we think, okay, this is something we do all the time, but wait a minute, this group doesn't even know about this. Just like Saima just normally eating with her fingers in her hands, and I have no knowledge of how to do this. So I would have to be taught. And I would probably not very good the first time I tried it. You're sitting there, you want to make your dreams come true in life. Listen, we all have different goals and dreams. Everyone watching, everybody seeing this and hearing this has different goals and dreams in life. Some of you have small, we'll call it small goals, which are beautiful. There's no right or wrong goals. It's whatever dreams and goals you have. Some of you have big, lofty goals. Some of you, quite frankly, have completely delusional and unrealistic goals and dreams that will never happen, and you'll be basically living a delusional life. But as long as you're happy, that's okay. You can live in delusion and be crazy and be happy, no problem. Some of you have big, lofty goals, and then when you don't achieve them, you get very depressed, which is not where you want to go. So how do you make goals and dreams happen and still maintain that place of peace and happiness and joy without stress and anxiety or feeling of overwhelm? Isn't that where we want to be? Kevin, show me. How does a leader, somebody with leadership energy activated, both the feminine and the masculine, how does that person, what do they do? What do they think? What do they say? What are the steps? Tell me. Give me the recipe. Now, the question is, if I give you this recipe and your leadership energy isn't activated, what will happen? You'll basically see it for yourself, because you'll go, I can't do step 2. Now you know your leadership energy isn't activated. And just by conscious awareness of that, that can, in most instances, activate it. Think about that. So here are the steps, and you can write these down and talk amongst your colleagues and your fellow Jinn brothers and sisters, and maybe do different things to activate this, and see if you're doing this on a regular basis. Maybe keep these steps with you and review them daily. It depends. Everybody has a different way of operating. But one thing is clear. We forget things very quickly, unless it's in front of our face. And even then we forget things very quickly. You know, in the Orthodox Jewish religion, there's a practice using what's called the mezuzah. And the mezuzah is a biblical or Torah order that God gives the Hebrews. And he says, take a scroll of a particular scripture, roll it up, and put it in a particular square or rectangular box, and at an angle, put it against your doorpost, and every doorpost. This way, every time you walk in and walk out, you'll see that little mezuzah, and it will remind you of God. So this is God talking to the Hebrews. He goes, look, I'm invisible. You can't really see me. There's no, anything here that you look at. So I need to give you something to remember that I'm around, because it's easy to forget. Same thing with doing the right thing, whether it's losing weight or exercising. We forget things super easy. So we have to have them in our face to remind us. So taking a list and putting it up on your computer screen, or putting it on the dashboard of your car, or putting it in your pocket, or putting it up on the refrigerator, or putting it someplace where the mirror of your bathroom, putting something there, which I have in my house, to remind you of these things and to keep you focused. So think about that. So here's the recipe: how leaders make dreams come true. This is what leaders do. This is what I do. And I look at other people and I just observe and say, obviously they wonder why they don't manifest goals, dreams, and desires. They wonder why they don't get in good physical shape. They wonder why they don't have a better relationship, because they're not doing the steps that they should be doing, and develop it into habits, and develop it into unconscious competent habits, right? These things that I'm going to mention to you are things that I do without even thinking about it. I don't have this list anywhere, because this is just automatic. If I want to make something happen, this is automatic. And I've gone back and I'm thinking, okay, what do I do on autopilot? And I wrote all these things down. And then I called guys who were on the council and said, hey, what do you do? What do you do? And we thought, what do you mean, what do I do? Yeah, let's go through. If you were to put together a steps, I can only show you my list. And we laughed. It's like, oh boy, they're like 99% there. We just have different words, maybe describing the same thing. So this recipe, this list of to-dos or action steps to manifest goals and dreams and desires is something that you really should dial into. And someone's going to say, is this different than anything that's in the Success Mastery course, Your Wish is Your Command, or the Science of Personal Mastery course? Any of the Guru Kev lessons, any of the material that we've already learned? Is this different? The answer is, you're going to find out. You're going to make that distinction, because what's going to happen is sometimes things are presented in a certain way, and you listen and you get it and you think, am I getting this? And then you hear it in a different unit of time or with a different phraseology. And then it's like, now I understand what he was saying all along. So the answer is, this is not new material, but perhaps it's going to be brand new for you. And by the way, some of you, this is brand new material, because maybe you're new to the club and you never even heard this stuff before. But remember this: spaced repetition. You have to hear the same thing over and over again, repetitively, over different intervals. And someone says, well, I've heard this before. No, you haven't. Because to know and not to do is not to know. So you may have heard it, but if you aren't doing it, if you aren't living it, you don't know it. And by the way, if you do know it, if you are living it, then you will love this, because it's like, yes, yes. And it makes it even more solid. It's going to turbocharge you. So here are the steps that a leader does, that I do, that we all do when we really analyze it, to manifest goals, dreams, and desires. This is how leaders, people who have leadership energy activated at least to some degree, make dreams become a reality. Number one, they look at their current situation and they don't like it. The first thing that has to happen, and we talk about this in level 2 of the Success Mastery course, the first thing that has to happen is you have to know what you don't want. You have to not like that. If you, let's say it's a car, you get in that car and you're fed up with it. You're tired of it. If you want to lose weight, you look in the mirror and you're disgusted with how you look. You have to know what you don't want, and you have to not like it to the point where it's painful, where it must be different. You're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You get to the point of being so fed up that you absolutely have to change that situation. It has to be different. You know what you don't want with exact clarity, and you know it can't stay that way. You're fed up, you're experiencing discomfort and pain with the situation to the point is you are now willing to move. This is critical area number 1. And the example is, you've heard the story before. The fellow who has the dog, an old hound dog, was back in the South, and the hound dog is lying on the wooden porch, and 2 fellows are sitting there, And the old hound dog, every once in a while, just kind of raises his head a little bit and goes, oh, puts his head back. A few minutes later, dog ain't moving. Just kind of reaches his head a little bit and goes, oh, oh, puts his head back. A few minutes later, dog doesn't move, just kind of moves his head a little bit. Oh, oh, oh. And one fella says, the other goes, what's wrong with your dog? And the guy goes, well, he's sleeping on a nail. And the other fellow says, well, why doesn't he move? And the owner of the dog says, well, it doesn't hurt him that much. Some of you will get that. What it means is the dog is experiencing pain, but it's not enough pain to actually force him to get up, which is a lot of work, and move. So the dog is thinking, how much effort is it going to take me to get up and move? I'm an old hound dog. I can endure the pain. Most people never manifest goals, dreams, and desires because they can endure the pain. And therefore, you're not motivated to move and put forth the time and effort required to make things happen. Think about that. So you have to know your current situation. You have to be in pain. That's number one. Number two, based on that pain, based on that, I'm sick and tired of this. If you have enough pain, now you are motivated, inspired to put forth time and effort to manifest what you want. And now you have to clarify exactly what you want. What do you want? What do you want to create? What do you want to manifest? What specifically do you want? What is your, we use the word ideal scene. What is your ideal scene? What's the dream? Everyone who manifests anything does the first step and then the second. Now, if you look at the stories of Walt Disney, Henry Ford, the gentleman, Mr. Kraft, who started Kraft cheese and invented Kraft American cheese, Daniel Moynihan, who founded Domino's Pizza, the guys who founded Uber, the guy, Jeff Bezos, who started Amazon. If you look at this, they all went through step one. Henry Ford, for example, had a successful car company, but he didn't sell tractors. But he was an old farm man, and Caterpillar just came out with this big, huge tractor for large farms. But Ford knew that there were small farmers, more small farmers than large farmers, that would benefit greatly from a mechanized tractor, a mechanized machine to pull their plows and do all the things that they're using horses for. So he went out to invent this tractor, and he designed one, and it was a colossal disaster. It didn't work. Think about this. He had a catastrophe. He created a disaster, a horrible product that nobody liked, that was not usable, not workable. It was a failure. Henry Ford failed dramatically with his first tractor. And looking at the design and what the failures were, he figured out what he needed to do, what had to happen, what needed to be fixed. He didn't know how it was going to happen, but he knew what this tractor needed to accomplish in order to be a successful tractor, because he knew what the farmers needed, and he knew the downfalls and what was wrong with the existing tractor that was a failure. Nobody wanted, couldn't sell one. And he didn't have a design. He didn't have it. He was working on it and trying to get it, and he didn't have a design. And guess what he did? Called up the newspapers, and he says, I have a tractor that I'm going to sell 10 million tractors next year to American farmers and transform the whole agricultural industry in America. And all over America, newspapers were printing the story about how Ford had a tractor that was going to completely revolutionize American farming. He was going to sell 10 million of them. and they'd be under $200. Now, Ford was saying this when he didn't have a tractor. He didn't have a design yet. A little risky, a little bold, a little arrogant. The British military, this was in the time of World War I. The British government called him up and said, hey, we need some of those because we're having a hard time feeding our people here. He says, no problem. I'll ship you 6,000 of them. He didn't have a tractor. He didn't have a design yet. He didn't have an assembly line set up yet. He didn't have a manufacturing plan for it yet. And he sells 6,000 to the British government. A little sense of urgency now. Well, fast forward. They designed the tractor. It was a fantastic tractor. He delivered on time and on budget the tractors to the British. Think about this. Kraft, who started American cheese, he had a problem. He was trying to sell cheese, but cheese went bad really quick. And so cheese companies around America, nobody had a national cheese company because you couldn't ship it. It would get moldy and look terrible. For 2 years, Kraft sat down himself and some of his chemists to try to come up with a way to make cheese that wouldn't go bad, that he could then ship around the country, that wouldn't get terrible. And he came up with a process of pasteurization. And he came up with a way to make cheese to, maybe it's not real cheese, but they call it American cheese, but make a cheese product. But it was revolutionary, and it revolutionized things because one man had a dream. He had an ideal scene. I want to be able to sell cheese around the country. Ford had an ideal scene. I'm going to basically get 10 million farms with my tractor, and it's going to transform their lives. It's going to make their lives better. Domino's Pizza. At that time, there was no national pizza delivery company. Delivering pizza was just something that some pizza places did, most didn't. And they didn't have a way to keep it warm. If you remember, before Domino's, you ordered the pizza, you know, somebody came in their car, they had this greasy box, which was all flimsy. The cheese stuck to the top of it. It was always cold. Even if you went and picked up the pizza, I remember I was a kid, we'd go and pick up the pizza and bring it home and eat it. It was cold by the time it got home. There was no bag. And this guy, Moynihan, I believe his name was, came up with the idea of delivery. And he had a vision, an ideal scene. I'm going to deliver pizza around. I'm going to set up a national chain, and we're going to set up a structure so that we can deliver within 30 minutes of an order. Back then, God knows how long it would take you to get the pizza. And again, it was no good anyway. So he came up with ways to take an order and get it to you within 30 minutes and get it hot. Uber, what a crazy idea that was. Amazon, what a crazy idea that was. They created ideal scenes for us. They decided what they wanted. They created the ideal scene. They had these dreams. Disney sat down and created an ideal scene. And this is, I think, probably one of the best examples, because this is documented so well that Disney was sitting there looking at swampland in Florida, and he drew out this design of Disney World. He did it first for Disneyland in California. And let me tell you how he did it. And he actually talks about and describes it. He said he sat down in a room, shut all the doors, shut all the lights off, and he envisioned himself into the future. He envisioned himself 30, 40 years in the future, walking in Disneyland in California before he even owned any land. He didn't own any land in California. He didn't have any money, but he sat in a room, he said, and he had a dream. He had a dream of a place that where everyone was happy, that was clean. The streets were clean. Everybody had a smile. It was a happy place. It was a land of happiness. And he closed his eyes and he pictured Main Street, and he pictured the shops, and he pictured the rides, and he pictured himself walking through this fantasy that he was creating called Disneyland. And he saw the people smiling and the kids playing and the characters in costume and the entertainment and the rides and the food and the shops and all this beautiful decor and no mosquitoes. This is what he pictured. No mosquitoes. And he pictured all the beautiful flowers, and there was no dead flowers, only beautiful flowers. And he pictured this ideal scene. He didn't know how this was going to happen. He had no money. He just had a dream. So you have to create an ideal scene. Leaders are dreamers. They can dream. They have an imagination. That's leadership. We talk about initiative. You have to be able to dream and have an imagination so that you can come up with initiative, because you have to actually see things not as they are, but as what they could be. Think about that. Number 3, when a leader has this dream, it can fade like a cloud in the sky and just dissipate into the ether, unless you do step 3, which is talked about at great length in the Science of Personal Mastery course. Step 3 is you make a decision that I'm going to do it, that's it, period. We say success is a decision away. And it's so true. Success is a decision away. What kind of a decision? It's the type of decision that's so emboldened, so firm, so strong, that you're so committed to, that the entire universe, like all the angels, actually hear it and stand up and say, uh-oh, he's serious now. We need to pay attention. And now, because he's serious, we are required to help him manifest his goal. From a spiritual perspective, that's how it works. You make a decision. Leaders make decisions that I'm going to do this. That's it, period. They make that commitment. And remember, character is following through on a commitment long after the excitement and emotion of the moment has passed. What do leaders do next? Now they start taking some action. And this is critical because a leader will take action within 24 to 48 hours after making that decision. This is such a critical aspect of leadership. Ron Ball and I were in Chicago years ago. I think this is in probably 2012. We were downtown Chicago. He was staying at a condo down there. And a few blocks away, there was a beautiful hotel that we had rented out the basement building, the basement meeting room for a global information network event. And we had it recorded. Unfortunately, the recordings got missing. There was some technical problem or something. They don't exist anymore. But Ron Ball and I did a very powerful seminar to the people that were in that room on several subjects. And one of which Ron got into at great length was the importance of making a decision and then following through on an action within 24 to 48 hours. When you make a decision or think you want to do something or have an idea of doing something, unless you take some type of action step within 24 to 48 hours, nothing happens. The statistics are just off the charts in terms of it just goes away, it's gone, it's over, you've given up because you're not serious, and it's just hard to restart that. So leaders, when they make that decision, or even when they're thinking about the ideal scene, they immediately, within 24 to 48 hours, take some type of action step. And the most important and significant action step you can take is to write down your ideal scene, to actually write it down, describe it in words, or, and, which means and or, get some pictures or draw some pictures of your ideal scene. Disney didn't write out verbally that wasn't the first thing he did. What he did was he drew it out. He drew kind of the plans for Disneyland. He started drawing it after he had his vision in his head. He started drawing it. So drawing a picture or getting pictures, clipping pictures out of magazines or printing pictures from the internet. or taking some pictures and then printing them and putting them up into a collage or something that you can physically see. You're putting something into the physical universe. You're taking an idea and you're transferring that idea into the physical universe. This is the first way to take an idea and put it into the physical universe. Thus, it's the first step in manifesting something into physical reality. You can also build a model. That's what also Disney did. He built models of Disneyland. If you look at all these people, they all drew sketches. They all wrote things down constantly, over and over again, not just one time. And step 4 was to write down your ideal scene. Now, if you look at the Volunteer Service Corps, when I was transferred from Montgomery, Alabama, back to Chicago, and I hooked up with Tom and Blaine, I said, what's our ideal scene? Actually, when I was away, I said, what's the ideal scene for the Global Information Network? And I wrote the ideal scene of the club document, the GIN vision document, the club vision document. So I wrote this all out. And that's a first draft. This is me being Walt Disney sitting in the room and saying, I see myself 30 years in the future. What do I see? And I wrote it down. I wrote it down for the ship vision. And I did all these steps in the Volunteer Service Corps, one of which is the ideal scene. So number 4, write down the ideal scene, create pictures, or maybe even a model. Step 5. A lot of people have dreams. And they're dreamers, but they're delusional because they don't take this next step. They don't go any further than where we're at. They're just thinking about their dream, thinking about their dream, thinking about their dream. Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. You have to take that dream, and now you have to do the hard thinking. Now comes the hard part. Hard part is you have to take that dream and saying, there's a lot here. I have no idea how any of this stuff is going to manifest. What would be my chief aim that I know that I can attain in 1 year? From my dream, from my vision document, what's the most logical next step? What's the chief aim to shoot for in the next year, knowing that I can achieve it if I just do the work? It's not a reach, it's not a stretch, it's something that I definitely realistically can attain. I know that. It isn't, I don't know how it's going to happen. It's like, I know this can happen. What's my chief aim for the first year? So you have to break down the dream and turn it into a chief aim. Number 6, you have to break down that chief aim then and saying, what are the short-term objectives and goals? In other words, if I take that chief aim, what would be my goal or objectives that I know that I can attain within a 1-month period of time or a 6-month period of time? There may be 5 or 6 objectives that I have to attain if I'm to get to my chief aim. So you have to break down the chief aim into objectives and short-term goals and write those down. And step 7, then you have to break down those goals into daily action steps and write those down. See, this is how it works. I got a book here, for example, some of you know it. It's called the Priority Manager. And in my Priority Manager, I have a list of to-dos. So I have all these to-dos, I write them down. There's a list, day after day after day, a list of to-dos. I have my chief aim, I have my objectives and goals, I have the action steps to achieve each objective and goal. It's all written down. Now, if you don't want to use a written system, you can do it on your computer, that's fine. But it's got to be written down. When I say written down, it has to be someplace where you can review it. It's critical. Into daily action steps. What am I doing today? I'm making this phone call. I'm printing this. I'm setting up this filing folder. I'm going to see this person. I'm calling this guy to set up an appointment. Oh, you want to become a successful businessman? Okay, what's the first step? Form a company. That's an objective. That's not a step, because forming a company is an objective. That's an end result. The company is formed. What steps have to happen to form a company? Well, number 1, I have to find out who's going to do it. Am I going to call someone to do it? Am I going to go online and do it online myself? Discuss where it's going to be formed and what structure. Is it going to be an LLC? Is it going to be an S Corp, a C Corp? It's going to be a trust, a foundation? Who am I going to discuss that with? So I'm writing all this stuff down, all my questions on a piece of paper. Then I maybe combine them and put them in my daily to-dos. This, my friends, is the hard part. See, this is what people ain't willing to do. Successful people are always willing to do what the other guys ain't willing to do. I'm willing to do what the other guy ain't willing to do. I'm willing to do the hard thinking. I'm willing to sit down at this desk or wherever I am around the world and say, okay, phone shut off, TV shut off, no distractions, door locked, do not bother me. I am focused and I am doing the hard thinking. And maybe I sit, maybe I get up and walk around. Maybe I jump on a mini trampoline. Maybe I grab some weights as I'm thinking. Maybe I do a little stretching. But I'm by myself and I'm thinking. Now, some people do it better with somebody else. Two people get into a room and you start bouncing off ideas because some people just can't do it themselves. They need that partner. That's great as well. But you have to break the goals and objectives down. You have to have goals and objectives. What's your objective? What's your objective? What's your objective? And you have to break them down to daily action steps. Number 8, you have to assign who is doing what specifically and what deadlines have been set for its achievement. When you start doing this, if you're doing it all your own, that's fine. You have to set the priorities. What's my priority today? What's my priority today? So for example, in my day today, I have one major objective, and that is I have coming up a court hearing. So everything else has been put as a non-issue. This is the only objective I have. And if you think about a military operation, if you have an objective of reaching a certain city in your military campaign, but all of a sudden you get attacked, now forget that. I have an urgent situation that I have to address. This is all hands on deck. This is everything I'm doing right now. So in my particular case, I have one objective. Everything else is a B priority and put off to the side. And so I have that objective. However, I also have a responsibility to the Global Information Network. So today, my number one objective is to finish producing these for you. So I have this on my list. It's written down. And then everything else is a B priority. If you're doing it all yourself, that's fine. But if you have others, you have to assign to each person, this is your objective, produce a set of action steps to achieve it. You don't have to give them the action steps. You don't have to give them the action. If I have multiple people, I say, give to me the action steps you're taking because I want to see what you're doing. Here's the objective. Here's the goal that I want to achieve by this deadline. Give me the action steps that you're doing. If I'm doing it myself, this is the goal. This is the objective. This is the deadline. I want to achieve it. Here are the set of action steps I need to do. And then I start putting those action steps into, what am I doing today? What am I doing tomorrow? What am I doing the next day? People need to be assigned their objective. This is your objective. In the Global Information Network, we do this all the time. We sit down with our staff and say, Kevin Tan, this is your objective. Danielle, this is your objective. Kevin Wolf, this is your objective. And then we'll say, give me the list of action steps that you're going to be doing. This is accountability. This is making sure that they're being held accountable. And it forces them to focus. If I'm doing it myself, this is my objective, this is my goal, and these are the action steps, and they're written down with deadlines. You don't set a deadline for a dream. You don't set a deadline for a chief aim. You set a deadline for your objectives and short-term goals. and you set deadlines for your to-dos, your specific action steps. And a specific action step is call accountant and set up meeting. That, for example, is a specific action step. Write out list of things to do. That's a specific action step. So you can see what an action step is. An objective is file tax returns or get tax returns filed. That's an objective. There's a bunch of steps there. See the difference? An action step is one thing. An objective is something, in order for it to be attained, there are a bunch of steps that need to be taken. That's the difference between a goal and objective are the same, and then action steps are different. Number 9, you got to keep score. You got to have your stats, and you got to, those stats, some of them have to be daily. You have to be looking at these stats, in many cases, daily. Some of them are weekly stats. Some of them are monthly stats. Stats can be numbers or graphs. They should be graphs. Graphs show you a relation. The number today compared to where it was yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. Or if it's a weekly graph, the number this week compared to what it was last week, the week before, the week before, the week before. This is critical because it shows the trend. Are we trending in the right direction or wrong direction? And by looking at the trend, a leader will take initiative and come up with some action to help change or reverse that trend or increase that trend. If the trend's going in the right direction, he'll take action. Let's do more of this. If it's going in the wrong direction, let's look at why this is happening. A leader will take charge. A leader will make a phone call and say, hey, I just noticed this graph. It's going in the wrong direction. I think we should have a meeting about this because I don't understand it. We need to find out why this is going in the wrong direction and how to reverse it. A leader will take that action. They'll take that initiative. We have people in companies, for example, I produce the graphs, I give them out to everybody, and I wait, and I go, who's going to have any initiative? I know what I would do. I can see something, and I go, let's do more of that. It's going in the right direction. Let's have a meeting about this, and let's focus on that to increase. And then there's a couple graphs going in the wrong direction. We have to have a meeting, find out why that's happening, and change it. And I'll see, does anybody in the whole company, and I've done this my whole life, we'd have sometimes hundreds of staff members. And I'll say, is there anybody in the whole company who's going to say, hey, there's something here we need to address? And it's shocking to me. Guess how many come up with some type of initiative? Well, in my career, the guys who I've been around, Andrew Melcher came up with initiative. Oh, by the way, he's a multi-millionaire today. He had a company doing over 1 billion British pounds in sales. Lee Kenny, incredibly successful man. Now, when they were with me, they were just starting off, making next to nothing, just starting off. Blaine Aythorne, Tom Morter, Ted Morter. I can name a few more. Wait a minute. The guys I know that are all incredibly successful today are the ones who showed initiative. And all the people I've been around for 20, 30 years who didn't show initiative all still have average incomes. Isn't that a trend? You got to keep score. You got to keep score. Every time I start a new project, the first thing I do is I grab a whiteboard and I draw it out with a boom and I put the score up there and I change it myself. I don't use the computer. You can use the computer and that's fine. I just grab a whiteboard. It's nice and big and it's right there in front of me, by the way. I'm staring at it. That's my scoreboard. That way I can see it all the time. I want to see the scoreboard. And I love getting up there with an eraser and erasing, putting the new numbers in. Because when I'm putting those new numbers in, I'm getting excited or pissed off. and I'm using the whole procedure that we talked about. If there's something that is going to give me some pain, that's good, because that'll get me to move off the nail. So you got to keep score. You have to have stats. Some of them are going to be daily, some of them weekly, some of them monthly, ideally on graphs so you can see the trend. And lastly, step 10 is you have to review your progress. You have to review the progress daily, weekly, monthly to see, are we on track? Are we on schedule? Are we under budget? Are we ahead of schedule? Are we behind schedule? Are we over budget? Are things working the way we thought they were? Are they not? You have to review the graphs, talk to people, discuss how things are going, look at the situation in a new unit of time, at least once a week. Don't wait till once a month. Definitely not once a quarter. In many cases, once a day, but at least once a week, maybe sometimes daily on a couple things, maybe mostly on a weekly, and maybe a couple other big things on a monthly. But you have to review your progress so that you can adapt and adjust as needed, so that you can attain those goals, you can hit those objectives, meet your deadlines, and then get closer to your chief aim, which gets you closer to the ideal scene. That's the only way. And if you review and look at the progress daily or weekly or monthly, you basically then rewrite everything from time to time. You rewrite your daily action steps. You rewrite sometimes and adjust your objectives and short-term goals, maybe alter them, adjust them, maybe alter the deadlines, maybe change an objective, maybe alter it, adjust it, maybe do the same thing with the chief aim. Maybe that needs to be adjusted, fine-tuned, re-clarified in a new unit of time as you're getting closer. What do we really want? What's the time frame that we're going to have it? And then the ideal scene, your big dream, also gets altered and adjusted. The first ideal scene for Disneyland and Disney World was not what you see today. It got altered and adjusted over time. You always have to adapt and improvise. You always have to review the progress on a regular routine basis. See, this is what leaders do. And I have to tell you, the majority of people out there don't have, it's not in their DNA to be this type of take charge type of dominant, domineering, driven type of person. And you're listening to this going, oh, that seems like a lot. I don't know if that's me. What am I going to do? Guess what you do? And most people, by the way, this is not in their DNA. This is very unique to have this type of bulldog approach, action-oriented, leadership-driven individual. This is unique. Most people don't have it to this degree. So you exert your leadership energy by hitching yourself to a leader. Think about that. This is the beautiful part of leadership energy. See, in the past, people always said, you have to be a leader, you have to be a leader, you have to be a leader. They did this with good intention, but they didn't know. They didn't come from the brotherhood. They didn't have the training. They didn't understand how everything works. So they were giving what's called sound good advice. But it's not real advice. It's just sound good advice. At the end of the day, all of you can increase your leadership energy to varying degrees. Every single one. If you go through all 10 of these steps, each one of you can get better than where you are now. And at the end of this weekend, your leadership energy is going to be activated. And you all have leadership energy. You all have both feminine and masculine, yin and yang, external, internal leadership energy. You all have it. So it's all going to be improved and increased to varying degrees. But most of you are not going to get to the top on all of these elements and be able to act and be able to exert at, let's say, a 10 out of 10 on all of these areas, because it's just not you. But your leadership energy then is to be part of a mastermind, to be part of a team, to hitch yourself to the wagon of a leader, somebody who is. And the club is the perfect environment for you to become aware of your own abilities. I've had people, for example, start companies because they wanted to be their own boss or for various reasons. And all of a sudden, the company starts succeeding. And then the person, instead of being happy, is completely overwhelmed because this is not them. They're not dialed into running a 10 or 20 or 30 or $50 million a year business. There's just too many headaches, too many hassles, and they're the owner. This is not giving them pleasure. This is not giving them freedom. This is not giving them happiness at all. And so what does that person do? This is the owner, and I've been around a lot of owners, by the way, who have been in this category back as early as the 70s. I've seen owners in the automobile business and the florist business and the restaurant business start something small. They liked it. They thought they were going to enjoy it. Then all of a sudden the headaches of business start coming in. They don't like it. The business grows and expands. Now they really don't like it. And they go, what do I do? And what do is they go, I'll tell you what, I'm going to hire somebody to run it. And I'm just going to basically stay out of the way. Or they sell it when they put the money in their pocket and they're going, I'm free. I'm free. I feel good. Some people sell it for a percentage ongoing. Like, I'm going to sell this to you, but I want a ongoing royalty or something for the next 20 years. And now they go, I love it. Well, what a successful person that is. They were at the right place at the right time. They got a business. It became super successful. They decided this isn't for me to run it and manage it and be the owner, but I can sell it and get a royalty or money now, or a royalty going on for the rest of my life, and be completely free and have all the freedom or whatever. There's all these different structures. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. In our club, we are implementing everything that we teach. We walk the walk. We just don't talk the talk. Josh Novi, when I was staying with him, he saw this live and in person, and it was a lot of energy in that room. And I don't think, Josh was around me where I amped up the energy so much, it became very uncomfortable, because it's like, wait a minute, I'm used to come, Josh, like, I'm used to coming home and relaxing, and all of a sudden I'm coming into this fire pit. And it's like, this is just too much, man. This is like wild. A lot of people do that when they go to Saima's place. Well, first off, a lot of people don't go to Saima's place, but for those few people that go in, they can't even handle the energy. Just so overwhelming. W. Clement Stone, who co-authored the book Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, who was the co-founder of Success Magazine, billionaire, owner of Combined Insurance. I was at his house. Man, walking to that house, the energy was like off the charts. Dexter Yeager, Ron Ball talked about him a lot. I went down to his house and I was training his kids on various things and working with Dex on a bunch of stuff. When I walked into his house, it was just him, but also his wife had that energy, his kids. I mean, walking into that house was also, wow, it's like, cool. I love it. Most people can't handle it. So we employ everything that we teach. Everything that I teach is something that doesn't come from a book. It comes from personal experience. Everything you're learning here is something that this club is actually doing in real time. This is how we built this club to where we are today in just a short period of time. When I started the club, this is exactly what I did. And sometimes things don't work out the way you anticipate or want or hope or think they should. Sometimes there's, detours along the way. Unexpected things come up. Leaders handle that. We talked about that yesterday, about how leaders handle the unexpected, the uncertainties, the changes that happen in life. So in our club, things have changed initially, and it went through a big transitional period of time that we never expected. And here we are again. What do we do? First thing we do is, what's the ideal scene? And the ideal scene is what we think the ideal scene is. Doesn't mean it's absolutely going to happen just that way. But it gives us a roadmap to start. The key is starting, is moving, taking some action now. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but something today. These are the steps that if you employ them, if you put them into practice, you'll see spectacular results in your life. And this is why the Volunteer Service Corps is so critical. People that have joined that Volunteer Service Corps, some of them, believe me, we blow them out because this is like too much energy. They can't handle it. And then they wonder why they're broke. You need to be able to handle it to some degree and either emerge as the leader yourself or emerge as a leader that can plug in with somebody who has more leadership energy than you. Those are the two ways to become successful. Either take the leadership role yourself as the pinnacle, or allow that leadership energy to come up and then attach yourself to somebody who has bigger leadership energy. That's how you become successful. You have to go to that level. And everybody can do that. They can't do the first. Not everyone can be a leader and take charge and be the top dog. Everyone's not born for that. That's not your karma. It's not your dharma. It's not in your DNA. It's going to make you miserable, and you're not going to be successful at it. Just like not like everyone can't be a concert violinist. You just don't have the basic skills, no matter how long you've been studying since you were 2 years old. Some people just study from 2 years old every 10 hours a day and still can't become a concert violinist because they just don't have it's not in their nature. It's not in their DNA. They just don't have the skill set. We know this. Same thing with we'll call it personality traits or attributes. But all of you can increase your leadership energy a little bit. And that's all you need to get a little better than where you are right now. And if you're not the top dog, and most of you won't be, tap in. That's why the volunteer service corps is so critical, or becoming a member support coach, applying for that. And that's why a lot of people ain't going to make it as a member support coach and will be released because they're not consistently exhibiting the leadership energy required for that position. It takes a little bit more than the average to be in that position. You have to be a little bit more on top of things. You need to check Telegram messages daily, not every week. You need to respond to emails the same day. This is what that position takes. It's that initiative. It's that drive. It's that being on top of things as opposed to lackadaisical. I'll tell you this club does what we teach. And this is why we're getting the results we are as a club. And this is why we're producing the results in you, the members. Which one of you, by the way, think about it, is going to be the next leader in our club? You know, down the road, we're going to have functions like this going on all around the world. Imagine a time when we have a leadership weekend going on all in French, because we have so many French people. Every speaker is speaking French, or if we have a couple speakers speaking a different language, they're being translated into French, but it's a event in French. We have one in German. We have one in Spanish. Think about, we could have 3, 4, 5 of these going on at the same time, each one with 1,000 or 2,000 people in it. Who's going to speak at these events? Who's going to be sharing with the other members? Many of you. The leaders that are watching this right now that will emerge. This is how it happened with Dexter, how it happened in the Brotherhood, how it happened in Skull and Bones, how it happened in all the organizations I've been a part of. Leaders within the group emerge. We don't bring in outside people. They're not part of the club. It's the leaders who go through the training, who go through the club. They're the ones who qualify and get to go on stage. And by the way, there's a lot of perks when you're on stage. You're treated real good. You've heard some of the audios. Some of the speakers that we've had on stage talk about, you know, maybe a limo picking them up at the airport and beautiful dinners and having a chance to be wined and dined and treated like royalty and all the perks they get, because we treat those people with the respect that they deserve because of the job they're doing. And that's you. That's you. You have what it takes. Each one of you have leadership energy within you that's just waiting to emerge and come forth in major, major ways. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of this weekend. Take advantage of your fellow Gin brothers and sisters. Take advantage of the speakers. Take advantage of the Gin staff. Encourage them. And in every aspect, keep being conscious and aware. Am I exhibiting some of the elements of leadership energy? By simple awareness, by simple consciousness, and by conscious action, that's how it starts to be released. And that's the beginning of the rest of your life. Much love, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. And I'll leave by saying this. I know you can do it. And I look forward to very soon spending time with you on the beaches of the world. Much love.